For years, whispers have surrounded Prince Harry's place in the royal family, and most of them trace back to one rumor that refused to die, and that is the question of who his real father is. But now, a secret DNA test has brought the truth back into the spotlight, and the results have left the palace completely stunned. Could this test finally put an end to decades of royal speculation? Or has it only raised more questions than answers? Join us as we uncover the truth about this shocking secret DNA revelation. Prince Harry's paternity and the tabloid. When Prince Harry was born on September 15, 1984, the world celebrated what seemed like another fairy tale moment for the British royal family. People were thrilled to see Princess Diana, glowing with joy, holding her second son beside Prince Charles. Yet behind the smiling photographs and cheerful headlines, something much heavier began to surface, and what should have been a time of happiness quietly became the root of one of the most damaging rumors in royal history. The reason was something no one expected. It was a simple detail that haunted the family for decades, and that was Harry's red hair. It all began as a harmless observation, but soon grew into one of the most discussed topics in royal gossip. For many, Harry's bright red hair stood out in a family known for darker shades, and people started whispering that it looked too different. What was meant to be a joyful birth turned into the seed of suspicion. But here's the most interesting part. The facts have always been available, yet few wanted to see them clearly. The story of Harry's birth wasn't just about a child coming into the world. It also revealed the state of a royal marriage that was already struggling behind closed doors. While the public saw a fairy tale image of Prince Charles and Princess Diana holding their newborn son, Diana later revealed that the private moment felt nothing like what the camera showed. In secret recordings she made for her biographer, Andrew Morton, she opened up about the painful truth of what happened right after giving birth. She explained that Prince Charles's first words were not of excitement or pride. Instead, according to her, he said, "Oh God, it's a boy," followed by, "and he's even got red hair." Those two sentences became more than just an offhand comment. They revealed a sense of disappointment and distance that marked the early cracks in their relationship. Diana later told Morton that the remark crushed the small sense of closeness she and Charles had shared before Harry's birth. It wasn't just a comment about hair or gender. It was a reflection of emotional distance and unmet expectations inside their marriage. Charles's remark also became one of the earliest signs that their private world was far different from what the public imagined. While the nation rejoiced, inside the palace, Diana felt a painful divide. She later stated that from that moment on, something between them was broken, and as time went on, this tension quietly shaped how the media and the public viewed the young prince. And what started as a family comment became fuel for gossip. It gave tabloids the spark they needed to start connecting dots that didn't exist. As years passed, rumors began spreading that Harry might not be Charles's biological son. The red hair became the so-called proof in the eyes of the tabloids, though there was never any real evidence behind it. What few people realized was that this entire claim was based on a misunderstanding of timelines, something that can be proven through simple facts. To understand this better, it's important to know about one man, Major James Hewitt. His name became forever tied to Princess Diana's story because of the relationship they later had, and the fact that he was rumored to be Henry's biological father. However, when people look at the timeline of events, the truth becomes crystal clear. Princess Diana didn't meet James Hewitt until the summer of 1986, almost 2 years after Harry was born. That fact alone makes the rumor impossible. Harry's birth was in September 1984, meaning Diana and Hewitt had not even met at that time. This isn't speculation, and it's been confirmed by people who were close to Diana during those years. Ken Worf, a royal protection officer who worked directly with her, stated that Diana only met Hewitt long after Harry's birth. Worf's account has remained consistent over the years, supported by others who were part of her security detail. Even James Hewitt himself denied the rumor multiple times. He explained that by the time he and Diana began their friendship, Harry was already a toddler. These are facts that can be checked, not opinions. Yet, the simplicity of these facts didn't stop the tabloids. They saw an opportunity to create a story that would sell papers and grab attention. The media world in the 1990s thrived on royal scandals, and anything that painted drama within the royal family was treated like gold. The truth didn't matter as much as the headlines that could grab attention. One of the most powerful people behind the scenes of such stories was Max Clifford, a publicist who was known for shaping tabloid headlines and selling sensational stories. Clifford managed James Hewitt during that period and played a major role in keeping the rumor alive. Despite Hewitt's denials, Clifford made claims suggesting that Diana's relationship with Hewitt began earlier than it actually did. He once claimed that the two were involved 2 years before Harry was born, a statement that directly contradicted both Hewitt's and Worf's timelines. Clifford was known for using controversy as a tool. He understood how to feed the public's curiosity and make stories explode in the press. He knew that a rumor involving the royal family, especially one questioning the paternity of a prince, would never go unnoticed. Even though there was no evidence, he pushed the story further, using the visual similarity of red hair as bait.
And it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. It's what I wanted. It's what I want.
It was an easy detail that the public could latch onto, even though red hair was common in Diana's side of the family. Her brother, Earl Spencer, and other relatives also had red hair, but that part was rarely discussed in the press because it didn't fit the dramatic narrative. This is where the role of the tabloid becomes clear. It wasn't about truth or accuracy. It was about keeping the story alive long enough to make profit. Clifford and others in the media world used gossip like fuel, turning minor details into major scandals. And because the royal family rarely commented on private rumors, the silence only made the speculation grow louder. Diana, caught in the middle, had to live with these whispers that questioned her integrity as a mother and a wife. The rumor about Harry's paternity became one of the many emotional battles she faced alongside her already troubled marriage. For her, it wasn't just about defending her son. It was about protecting him from a world that often forgot he was still a child. The more the media pushed the story, the more she suffered privately. The strange part is how easily the public ignored the simple facts. If many had paid attention to the clear dates and Diana's own words, the story would have ended before it began. But the press knew how to keep it alive. Each time the topic died down, another article or anonymous source would bring it back. For the tabloids, the goal wasn't to find the truth, it was to keep people talking. And as long as people talked, the papers sold. The damage, however, wasn't just public. It affected how Harry grew up and how he viewed the press. The endless stories about his supposed paternity shaped his feelings toward the media, leading to his well-known distrust of journalists as an adult. Years later, Prince Harry spoke openly about how the press made his mother's life unbearable and how he never wanted his own family to go through the same thing. Because all this started as a rumor about hair color and eventually became part of a much larger story about media exploitation, emotional pain, and the loss of privacy. Now, when you look back at this, it becomes clear that the rumor was never about the truth. It was about power, the power of headlines to shape opinions and to control how people saw the royal family. The tabloids knew that controversy sold better than kindness, and as a result, a young boy's appearance became a lifelong target of speculation. Still, when the facts are laid out plainly, the answer has always been simple. The affair between Diana and Hewitt began after Harry's birth. There is no possible overlap in time that could make the rumor true. Even Hewitt's own statements confirm it. Yet, the idea that Harry might be someone else's son remained a favorite topic for tabloids, proving how deeply the media had influenced public thinking. The saddest part is that Diana herself couldn't escape the emotional toll of these lies even after her death. She once expressed that the rumors about her and her son hurt her more than any other scandal. They turned her private pain into public entertainment. And because she was one of the most photographed women in the world, every small change in her life became fuel for gossip. For many journalists, the truth didn't matter as much as the next big story. As the years went by, this rumor didn't just fade quietly. It became part of royal folklore, something that people repeated even when they knew it was false. The mix of curiosity, jealousy, and the hunger for scandal kept it alive. It shows how the power of suggestion, when amplified by the media, can shape perceptions even against logic and fact. Prince Harry's red hair was never proof of anything except his strong Spencer family genes, yet it became the central image in a media storm. This shows how easily public opinion can be misled by what appears obvious but isn't. And for Diana, it symbolized how something innocent could be twisted into something painful. However, by the mid-1990s, as her marriage to Charles completely broke down, Diana was already fighting battles on several fronts. She had to face the same press that once called her the People's Princess, but later turned her life into a spectacle. The gossip about Harry's paternity was one of the cruelest examples of how the truth can be overshadowed by sensationalism. Even today, decades later, the story still resurfaces from time to time, often online or in documentaries trying to revisit old scandals. And every time it's re-examined, the same facts stand unshaken. Diana and Hewitt met 2 years after Harry's birth, and there is no evidence to suggest anything different. The timeline remains the strongest defense against the rumor that refused to die. But this is only the beginning of a much deeper story. Because behind the headlines, there were people, Diana, Charles, and Harry, who had to live through the emotional impact of these rumors. And as the years went on, the relationship between Diana's marriage, royal family, and the media became even more complicated. However, everything started when Diana got married to King Charles. So, stay tuned as we dive more into this. The marriage in crisis and the cry for help. When Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer got married in 1981, it was called the wedding of the century. The whole world watched as a shy young kindergarten teacher married the future King of England. Millions tuned in to see what looked like a dream come true. The streets of London were filled with cheers, and the palace balcony moment became one of the most famous in history. Yet behind that perfect smile and sparkling tiara, Diana was living a completely different story. What people didn't see was that from the very beginning she felt deeply alone, frightened, and misunderstood. The fairy tale everyone believed in was only an illusion, and it quickly turned into a painful struggle that almost destroyed her from within. Diana's problems began almost immediately after she entered the royal household. The palace was strict, cold, and filled with rules that left little room for emotions or mistakes.
Can turn the nourishment of the body into a painful attack on themselves.
She was only 19 when she married Charles, and she suddenly found herself surrounded by people who didn't know how to handle her warmth, her vulnerability, or her emotions. Everyone around her expected perfection, but no one offered her understanding. As time went on, she began to feel trapped in a world where she could not speak freely or express her feelings. This pressure became unbearable, and it slowly began to affect her mental health. Diana once explained that her eating disorder, bulimia, started as a way to cope with her emotional pain. She called it a secret disease, something she hid from everyone while she struggled to appear perfect in public. In her infamous 1995 Martin Bashir interview on the BBC, she opened up about this in heartbreaking detail. "Bulimia is like a secret disease," she told Bashir. "You fill your stomach up 4 or 5 times a day. Some do it more, and it gives you a feeling of comfort." Diana also added that the bulimia was a result of her marriage to Charles, and that she was crying out for help but giving the wrong signals. Her words painted a clear picture of someone who was desperately trying to be heard but kept being silenced. She described how the royal household seemed more focused on appearances than on her pain. The public saw a smiling princess, but behind closed doors, she was crying out for help, She felt like everyone had decided who she was without truly understanding her, and that loneliness pushed her deeper into despair. As her condition worsened, her body began to weaken. She often fainted during official engagements, and her staff had to help her stand through events. Yet, instead of compassion, what she received was criticism. Some members of the royal circle saw her struggles as emotional weakness rather than signs of mental distress. She once said that her bulimia became the coat on a hanger that people used to explain away her behavior. It was easier for them to say she was unstable than to admit that the institution itself was crushing her.
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got.
However, her cry for help became even louder in early 1982 when she was 4 months pregnant with Prince William. It was supposed to be one of the happiest times in her life, yet it turned into one of her darkest moments. One day, in a state of emotional collapse, she threw herself down a flight of stairs at Sandringham House. In her own words, she said it was not an attempt to end her life, but a desperate act to get her husband's attention. She explained that she wanted Charles to see her pain and listen to her, because she felt invisible and unwanted. According to Diana's recollection, Charles did not respond with concern, but with indifference. She recalled what he told her: "I'm not going to listen. You're always doing this to me. I'm going riding now." That response left her feeling even more isolated. When she fell, the Queen came running out, shocked and terrified by what she saw. Diana stated the Queen was trembling and clearly frightened. Even then, the seriousness of what had just happened did not lead to the kind of help Diana truly needed. The palace, as an institution, was not built to handle emotional pain or mental illness. It was a place where silence was considered strength, and any sign of distress was viewed as weakness. That moment when she fell down those stairs showed how deep her despair had become. She was a young woman, pregnant and lonely, trying to hold together a marriage that was already breaking apart. She didn't want to harm her unborn child, but she wanted someone to care enough to notice that she was suffering. Her life had become a picture of emotional neglect hidden behind royal luxury. As time went on, the cracks in her marriage to Charles became more visible. While the world still saw the glamorous royal couple, inside the palace, they were drifting further apart. Diana's mental health struggles made her more emotional and expressive, while Charles preferred a reserved and traditional approach. He couldn't understand her need for emotional connection, and she couldn't understand his silence. Their communication broke down completely, and soon both of them began to look elsewhere for comfort. The greatest source of tension between them was the continued presence of Camilla Parker Bowles in Charles's life. Even before the marriage, Diana suspected there was more to their relationship than friendship. She later described her wedding day as being crowded with 3 people, meaning herself, Charles, and Camilla. This painful truth became something she could never escape. Charles' attachment to Camilla made Diana feel like she was constantly competing for his affection. Every time she tried to bring it up, it ended in arguments or silence. She once stated that she begged for love, but what she received instead was distance. As the marriage continued to break down, both Charles and Diana found themselves in relationships outside the marriage. Their emotional separation had become complete, even though they still appeared together in public. By the early 1990s, their private issues had spilled into public view through a series of shocking media leaks. The first major one was the Squidgygate tapes, where private phone calls between Diana and a close friend were recorded and released. Then, the Camillagate, which exposed private conversations between Charles and Camilla. These tapes painted a picture of 2 deeply unhappy people living separate lives under the same royal roof. For the royal family, this was one of the most humiliating moments in royal history. The press devoured every detail, and the public couldn't look away. For Diana, it was unbearable. She had gone from being the world's most adored princess to a woman trapped in scandal and heartbreak. And for Charles, his reputation suffered as his affair became impossible to deny.
Can turn the nourishment of the body into a painful attack on themselves.
The Queen herself called 1992 her annus horribilis, meaning her horrible year, because of how much chaos surrounded the royal family. It was the same year that Charles and Diana officially separated. What had once been presented as a perfect love story fell apart in front of the entire world. But even after their separation, the emotional toll on Diana did not ease. She remained under constant media attention, and every move she made was judged and analyzed. The tabloids painted her as unstable or manipulative, ignoring the years of emotional neglect that had led to her distress. And here's the most heartbreaking part of all this, so stay tuned. The People's Princess and the Verdict of Unlawful Killing. When Diana finally signed the divorce papers in August 1996, the world believed she was stepping into a new beginning. She was no longer bound by the expectations of the royal family, no longer confined to a life where her emotions were questioned and her voice was silenced. Yet even without the title Her Royal Highness, Diana's grace and compassion continued to shine. In fact, she became more powerful than ever, not through privilege, but through purpose. Free from the strict rules of the palace, she found a new way to connect with people. She began focusing entirely on what truly mattered to her, her sons, and the causes that touched her heart. But this freedom came at a cost, because while she had escaped the palace walls, she could never escape the public eye. Every move she made was still photographed, every word she spoke analyzed, and every friendship questioned. The fairy tale had ended, but the story was far from over.
I'm supposed to have my head down the loo for most of the day.
She did tell me that.
Diana began this new chapter by turning her pain into something greater, which was compassion. She poured her energy into humanitarian work that made the world see her in a different light. This was no longer the shy young bride who had married into royalty. This was a woman with conviction, empathy, and courage. Her most iconic mission began in January 1997, when she traveled to Angola with the Halo Trust, a charity dedicated to clearing landmines left behind after years of war. The image of Diana walking through a cleared minefield in a simple white shirt and protective vest became one of the most powerful photographs of her life. It wasn't about fashion or fame. It was about humanity. She walked through danger not for show, but to make the world see what ordinary people were living through every day. She met mothers who had lost children to hidden mines and survivors who had lost their limbs. She also knelt on the level of a child, sitting on the edge of a patient's hospital bed, writing personal notes to her fans. That gesture showed warm, fearless, and unguarded, and it reminded the world why she was called the People's Princess. She didn't just talk about helping people. She showed up where others wouldn't. Her compassion extended beyond war zones. Diana was also one of the first high-profile figures to challenge the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS. In the early 1990s, when people still feared touching those living with the virus, Diana did what no royal or public figure had dared to do. She sat with patients, spoke to them with kindness, and shook their hands without gloves. That single act shattered myths and fear in one simple gesture. She wanted the world to see that those suffering from AIDS were not untouchable, not dangerous, but human beings deserving of love and dignity. Hospitals and charities she visited later stated that her presence helped change attitudes more than any speech or policy could. Through all these public acts of kindness, Diana was slowly reclaiming control over her life. But behind the camera flashes and the smiles, she still faced immense pressure.
And, it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. It's what I wanted. It's what I want.
The press that once adored her now hounded her endlessly. They wanted photos, stories, and headlines. No matter the cost, the tabloids followed her cars, camped outside her gym, and even bribed sources close to her. Still, Diana tried to live as normally as she could. She found joy in spending time with William and Harry, who were growing fast. She wanted them to experience a childhood filled with love, away from the cold formalities of royal life. She would often take them to amusement parks, fast food restaurants, or even to visit the homeless, teaching them empathy and humility by example. According to those around her, she was never happier than when she was just a mum, laughing with her boys, far from cameras and titles. Then there was the summer of 1997, a summer that became one of the most talked about seasons in modern history. Diana met Dodi Fayed, the son of wealthy businessman Mohammed Al Fayed, the owner of Harrods. Dodi was charming, attentive, and eager to make her smile. Their relationship quickly drew worldwide attention. Paparazzi swarmed every destination they visited, hoping to capture intimate photos of the couple. During that summer, Diana and Dodi traveled across the Mediterranean, from the south of France to Sardinia. The photos of them on yachts, laughing together, filled magazine covers. But what the public didn't see was the darker side of that constant pursuit. Wherever they went, a convoy of photographers followed. Speedboats chased them at sea, and cameras waited at every dock and hotel entrance. By late August, Diana and Dodi decided to stop in Paris before returning to London. They stayed at the Ritz Hotel, owned by Dodi's father. That night, August 30th, they planned to have dinner at the hotel and then head to Dodi's apartment. But the press had already found out their plans. Outside, a crowd of photographers and journalists gathered, ready for the next photo that would sell millions of copies. Shortly after midnight, Diana and Dodi left the Ritz in a black Mercedes driven by Henri Paul, the hotel's deputy head of security. Their bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, sat in the front passenger seat. The car sped off, trying to outrun the chasing paparazzi on motorbikes. Within minutes, tragedy struck. At around 12:23 a.m. on August 31st, 1997, the car crashed inside the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The impact was devastating. Dodi and Henri Paul were killed instantly. Trevor Rees-Jones survived, but was critically injured. Diana was still alive when emergency services arrived, but she was gravely wounded. She was rushed to the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her. Despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead at 4 a.m. She was just 36 years old. When the news broke, the world stopped. People couldn't believe it. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace, crying, holding flowers, and lighting candles. News stations played her final public appearances over and over. It felt as if the whole planet was mourning one person. The initial French investigation in 1999 concluded that Henri Paul had been driving at high speed while intoxicated, and that was the cause of the crash. But many weren't satisfied with that answer. Questions lingered. Why were they being chased so recklessly? Were there other factors that led to the crash? Years later, a massive British investigation known as Operation Paget sought to uncover the full truth. The inquiry examined every detail, from eyewitness accounts to security footage, and from forensic reports to statements by the paparazzi involved. After months of public hearings, the jury delivered its verdict in April 2008. Diana and Dodi had been unlawfully killed. The verdict stated that their deaths were the result of grossly negligent driving by both Henri Paul and the pursuing paparazzi. It confirmed that Henri Paul's judgment was impaired by alcohol and that the paparazzi's aggressive pursuit created the conditions for the fatal crash. The inquest also found that neither Diana nor Dodi had been wearing seatbelts, which could have made a difference in the outcome. For millions around the world, the verdict brought some closure, but not peace. It was clear that the very press that had built her image as the people's princess had also played a role in her death. The same cameras that captured her compassion were the same ones that chased her into the darkness of that tunnel. Diana's funeral on September 6, 1997, was one of the most watched events in television history. Over 2.5 billion people around the world tuned in. The sight of her coffin draped with the royal standard, carried through London, left millions in tears. Prince William and Prince Harry, then just 15 and 12, walked behind their mother's coffin with their father, grandfather, and uncle. It was an image no one would ever forget. Even in death, Diana united the world in grief. She had lived a life filled with compassion and conflict, but her legacy went far beyond tragedy. Because through her humanity, she had changed how people viewed royalty, and even how they viewed one another. The palace was forced to confront something it had long ignored, which was the public's demand for openness, empathy, and authenticity. Diana's influence reshaped the monarchy itself, making it more aware of emotion and connection. And for her sons, she became a guiding light. Both William and Harry would later speak about her kindness, her strength, and how deeply they missed her. So, from the rumors about Harry's paternity to the pain Diana silently carried, do you think the royal family could have done more to protect her and her sons? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.